According to recent statistics, at some time in their lives, over 1/3 of all people in the United States will develop a mental health problem or an addiction. Comprising a wide variety of conditions, including depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and schizophrenia, mental health illness strikes people of all races, ages, and socioeconomic backgrounds. But when addiction occurs at the same time, an already challenging condition becomes even more difficult. And studies are confirming that up to half of all people with a mental health problem will develop a co-occurring addiction problem.
Co-occurring disorders, as we define them, are a mental illness, which can be schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a co-occurring substance use disorder. So that could be alcohol abuse, alcoholism, opiate addiction. And what happens are both mental illness and substance use disorders are brain diseases that really have to be treated at the same time. Unfortunately, for families and individuals, there's very few programs that really provide an integrated treatment for both addiction and mental health. So it's very confusing for families because co-occurring disorders could mean anything. And so families really need to see how that program defines co-occurring disorders.
Research shows that nearly 14 million Americans that suffer from co-occurring disorders, only 19% receive the appropriate treatment for both disorders. In fact, the vast majority of patients experience bouncing between substance use and mental health treatment systems that practice very different and often opposing treatment structures.
Treatment for mental illness and treatment for addictions have traditionally developed separately, both in terms of the education that clinicians get and in terms of the organizations that provide the treatment and in terms of the payer systems that pay for the treatments. So what happened was, if you were a person who had the two disorders, you would go to one treatment setting for treatment of your mental illness, another for a treatment of your addiction, and you'd hear different messages about what your illness was and what was required to manage your illness, and it was very confusing for people, and people didn't do well. So what we've learned through research is that integrating the treatment, both at the level of what the provider does and at the level of the organization, in order to provide a really coherent message to the patient and their families, and that's what really helps people get into recovery.
Here at Westbridge Community Services in Brooksville, Florida, residents receive evidence-based integrated treatment that is tailored to meet the unique needs and strengths of each individual.
Westbridge focuses on treating people with severe mood and thought disorders, such as bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, as well as co-occurring addiction. And this requires fairly intensive treatment, so we provide evidence-based practices that include integrated dual disorder treatment that can have all those services under one roof. And we use motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as assertive community treatment that allows us to take people from residential services and follow them into the community so that we provide support for a long-term recovery.
Founded by Al West and Laura Lee West, after their son was diagnosed with co-occurring disorder, Westbridge was born from the struggle they encountered finding a treatment program that would focus on both disorders at once.
When we started it, Al and I hoped that we could stop one parent from going through what we had had to go through in trying to find help for our son. So our commitment was to build something that could then sustain itself and help more and more people. We're committed for life. I always wondered what God wanted us to do with our money. And I think He gave us Alfred to show us the way, because this is our lifetime commitment.
10 years later, Westbridge is successfully helping individuals and their families learn how to live a life of recovery.
Because Westbridge has been family-founded and family-focused, we are really committed to helping both the individuals and the families regain their life in recovery. Everyone who comes to Westbridge participates in family education and support. We also have assertive community treatment teams that will provide side-by-side support for people in the community so that they can go back to school, they can work, they can develop an identity for themselves besides just being somebody with a dual disorder. It's really important for us that everybody who comes to Westbridge is able to experience recovery and be able to access, any type of treatment that they need in order to get better.
Believing that recovery is a way of life that embraces emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual health, treatment at Westbridge focuses strongly on holistic practices, which include exercise, sleep, and nutrition therapy. Here, recovery is seen as a marathon, not a sprint, and integrating wellness into every aspect of treatment gives individuals the tools and patience to run the race until the end and to live a life of recovery.
In addition to psychiatric and addiction treatment, we also provide lots of services that can improve outcomes in other ways. So we do things like focus on a balanced diet. We encourage regular sleep patterns. We also encourage exercise, so we provide services like daily yoga and also basketball, tennis, swimming, and exercise off campus. Things that can improve mood and sleep and improve outcomes overall. And that's what our goal is, to just provide treatment for the whole person. And recovery is based on those kind of outcomes.
I chose Westbridge because I was looking for a place that had both substance abuse training and also mental health issues, and it's very difficult to find someplace that does both. My loved one was in 2 other treatment programs, actually very well-known treatment programs. The difference is it's very multi-comprehensive. It's not only about the mental health component and the substance abuse component, but it's also about schooling and family interactions, education, and it was a full-service supportive program. I've never heard of one before, so I was very, very thrilled and completely happy with the results of where we are now.
Perhaps because Westbridge began from one family's desire to help their own loved one, the importance placed on family is paramount. Strongly committed to the integration of family in every phase of treatment, Westbridge developed the Family Education and Support Program, an ongoing part of treatment that empowers the entire family on their journey to wellness and recovery.
We use the stress vulnerability model to understand mental illness. In this model, the view is that everyone is born with a certain vulnerability to developing a mental illness, and then once a mental illness develops, there are 2 things that can make it worse. One is stress, and the other is using substances. And then there are 2 things that can make it better. One is taking medicines, and the second is managing stress, and that's where families come in. If families can understand these illnesses and learn how to manage stress and solve problems, then the person who has the co-occurring disorder will do much better over time. So families are key partners in treatment, and good programs like Westbridge will engage and work with families from the very beginning and throughout the whole course of treatment.
Statistics show both mental health conditions and addictions are on the rise. Westbridge knows that recovery from co-occurring disorders is possible and is committed to being the premier provider of dual diagnosis treatment by developing the most proven and effective integrative continuum of care available today for individuals and their families.
Westbridge is committed to providing state-of-the-art treatment for people and families that have co-occurring mental illness and substance use disorders. We've been involved with other national leaders in developing standards for treatment providers that want to treat co-occurring disorders. We are involved with intervention and prevention for college students in the greater Boston area in a program called Encores. We have been developing protocols for smoking cessation, opiate replacement therapy, as well as sleep hygiene.
Westbridge Community Services, family-founded and family-centered treatment for dual diagnosis. To find out more, please visit westbridge.org or call 1-877-461-7711.